محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة ويا عبرة كل مؤمن ومؤمنة. يا ليتنا كنا معكم سيدي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وأطيعوا الله ورسوله ولا تنازعوا فتفشلوا وتذهب ريحكم واصبروا إن الله مع الصابرين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Sectarian wars and wars of religion are not new. They are deep-seated in history. Probably they are as old as the history of a humankind. There are, from the very beginning, from the time of the Sumerians to Babylons to Greek, Roman, to the Middle Ages, to the wars of the Crusaders, and up to now, to the modern time. You see that those strifes are instigated by religious differences. You would see that in Europe. Back from 1512 to 1648, more than 120 years, they were sectarian strifes and fighting among Christians, the Orthodox on one side and Catholics on the other side. In Northern Europe, in Western Europe, killing were rampant everywhere. You will see fighting between Christians and Muslims, between Christians and Jews, between Jews and Muslims. Those were rampant even to recent history. In fact, you can almost trace every single major war to some sort of religious factors. Even the First and Second World Wars. In the First World War was between the Islamic Ottoman Empire and Germany on one side, and the Allied forces, the Christians, on the other side. In the Second World War, it was between the German Catholics who have been persecuting the Jews and other religious minorities, and so on. During the colonial time, where the Christendom has dominated the large swath of Muslim nations. This fighting has been going on for so many years, as early as the dawn of history. But what is disturbing and shocking is that when you see an infighting among Muslim brothers, those people who happen to worship to the same Qibla, read the same holy book, revere the same prophet, perform the 5 daily prayers, and they do the fastings, Hajj, Zakat, and all those rituals. Probably 90% of our rituals are common, yet we get down to a violent war, to infightings. Nowadays, look at Afghanistan, Look at Syria, Iraq, Pakistan, southern Lebanon. They're all becoming bloodbath of violence between two people. What makes it shameful and embarrassing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bears witness to this ummah, says, Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas. The best among the nations, yet you see how they, go down to fighting among themselves. In 1997, in Mazar Sharif, more than 8,000 of Hazara were killed at the hand of Taliban, fellow Muslim killing Muslim. In Iraq, so far, more than 300,000 civilians have been killed due to senseless violence. Every single month, brothers and sisters, every single month, between 800 to 1,000 people lose their life. Nowadays in Syria, more than 125,000 people, and the counting is keep going on and on. God knows when the civil war will stop. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given a stern warning. Says, وَلَا تَنَازَعُوا فَتَفْشَلُوا. There is no win-win situation. No one would win out of this. It is a lose-lose situation. Even if you have won over your brother, you should consider yourself that you are losing. Why? Because the strangers, others will not take you seriously. They will take you shallowly. You will lose your stamina and lose your strength. Nothing will be left for you. Another stern warning. Look at the ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاتَّقُوا فِتْنَةً لَا تُصِيبَنَّ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا مِنْكُمْ خَاصَّةً. This is Anfal, Surah Al-Anfal, Ayah 25 says, be careful of any chaotic, any disorder within your community, that it would not catch the perpetrator only. The perpetrators, the criminals who instigate this are not the ones who will be caught, rather the entire community. Even the civilians, even the innocents will be caught in this, senseless act of violence. Imagine someone is in a ship and he wants to puncture his seat, nail his seat. What will happen to rest? He will ensure that the entire passenger community in the ship will go along with him and sink in the water. This is what is happening, unfortunately, brothers and sisters. Someone instigates a violence, does something foolish, whether for a deliberate act or have been told or have been paid for, and unfortunately you see a reaction from the other side. And first it starts with the criminals, with those perverted criminals who instigate the violence. But soon after, you see that the violence become wider and wider and wider until it grabs the entire region. The entire region sink into act of violence. Tonight, my brothers and sisters, my topic is about the senseless act of violence. What are the factors of this? And what is the solution, if there is any solution, after your big and loud salawat. The first factor, brothers and sisters, is the racist and a prejudiced culture. And I'm talking about the Islamic culture. I'm not talking, whenever I mention culture, whenever I mention religion and faith and sects, I am talking about the Islamic. No, we're not talking about non-Islamics. So when we talk about the prejudice and racist culture, we're talking about the Islamic religious culture, unfortunately. You see, this has been going on ever since the establishment or before Islam. Actually, it was an act of Jahiliyyah. The Jahiliyyun used to distinguish between Arabs and non-Arabs, Quraysh and non-Quraysh. But unfortunately, this also was carried out to large swath of people during, the advent of Islam. Despite the fact that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi has fought it relentlessly, have explained his position very well, yet you will see that it was going through many companions. One narration says that the companions were sitting in the masjid, in the mosque of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, and they were bragging and boasting about their ancestors and their forefathers. Everyone would stand up and say, I am son of this person, who's son of that person, who's son of that person, and keeps going like that. One day, a man who was boasting about his ancestors, he counted 5 ancestors. The angel came to the Prophet and told him, Oh, Ya Nabi Allah, tell this guy, tell him that all your 5 ancestors are in the hellfire and you are number 6 with them. This is it. In one day, they were boasting about this. One of them, who was sitting next to the Prophet, was Salman. Salman came from Persia. People didn't know his father. He was a poverty-stricken person with ridden clothes, worn out clothes, sitting among the companions. They were sarcastically mentioning their names of ancestors until they got to Salman. They told him, Salman, who's your family? Who's your father? Right away the Prophet said, Salmanu minna ahl al-bayt. Salman is among ahl al-bayt. Stop this foolish thing. Where are you going with this? Where are you going with this ancestry? ألهاكم التكاثر حتى زرتم المقابر. You started to count the dead, the deceased. What does benefit this brings to you? Unfortunately, this was carried out during the time of Bani Umayyah. During the time of Muawiyah, he used to set up 2 masjids. One for the Arabs and the other one for Mawali. Mawali mean those Muslims who came to Islam and they are not Arabs. He would tell his, rulers, his commanders, that keep those Mawali in this masjid and use them as laborers. Once you are done with them, kill them. This is well written in history. This is what, has been going on. And unfortunately, it has been condoned by the religious establishment, by the jurists. When you look at their ahkam, for example, I will give you a couple examples. They say, when they talk about marriage, and who merits to marry someone else within his sect, they say the criteria is being an Arab. An Arab is befitting to marry an Arab, while non-Arabs are befitting to marry non-Arabs. And this is in the religious writings. They divide people on their ethnicity, on their nationality. They divide people on their vocation, their skills. If you are a skillful person, a trader, then you are befitting to marry someone from your type. If you're not, you cannot. When you look at the scholars of Ahl al-Bayt or the Imams of Ahl al-Bayt alayhim salam, you see that 6 of our great Imams, their mothers were maids, were slaves. They were not even a free people. This is how Ahl al-Bayt alayhim salam, and on top of them Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi would tell people that there is no difference. In his last sermon, Khutbat al-Wada', he stands up and says, أيها الناس إن ربكم واحد وإن أباكم واحد لا فضل لعربي على أعجمي ولا لأحمر على أسود إلا بالتقوى إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. You all belong to one father, one mother. What is the difference between this person and that person? The only difference, the only criteria is piety, taqwa. He practically have demolished this stratification in society. He had adopted son called Zayd ibn Haritha. Nobody knew who was Zayd was. from a very weak part of society, the Prophet took him and adopted him as a son. When this man grew up, he made him marry his cousin Zainab bin Jahsh. The other cousin, Dhaba'a bint Zubayr ibn Abd al-Muttalib, the granddaughter of Abd al-Muttalib. He asked her to marry a man, a simple man called Al-Miqdad. Demolishing all those barriers between different sects and different classes in the society. Most of you have heard the famous story of Juwaybir. Juwaybir was a dark-skinned man who migrated to Medina and became Muslim. Was in abject poverty, who could barely even protect or cover his body. His clothes were not even enough to cover his entire body. One day the Prophet told him, Ya Juwaybir, don't you want to get married? He said, Ya Rasulullah, are you kidding with me? Who would give me a wife? Who am I? No one would know me. The Prophet told him, there is a wealthy man, his name is Ziyad. He has a daughter, Ad-Dalfa or Ad-Dalfa. Go and ask him. He said, Ya Rasulullah, who am I and who's this person? This guy is a tribal leader, a wealthy man, an aristocrat. Who would recognize me if I would go? Listen to the Prophet. Told him, Ya Juwaybir, إن الله وضع بالإسلام من كان في الجاهلية شريفا وشرف بالإسلام من كان في الجاهلية وضيعا. Told him, Ya Juwaybir, when people became Muslim, those who were aristocrat during the time of Jahiliyyah, Islam brought them down. And those who were humiliated during the Jahiliyyah and they became Muslim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has lifted them up. There is no difference. فَالنَّاسُ الْيَوْمِ كُلُّهُم مِّنْ آدَمٍ. There is no difference between them. وَإِنَّ أَحَبَّ النَّاسِ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَأَقْرَبُهُمْ إِلَيْهِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَطْوَعَهُمْ لَهُ وَأَتْقَاهُمْ. If you want to see the beloved people to God, are those who are the most submissive to Him, those who have piety. And I don't see anyone, any Muslim has a preference over you. You're a believer, you're a Muslim, just like any other one. Go and get married with his daughter. It's in a long story. He gets married and everything, ends up in a happy ending. But what I'm trying to say is that the Prophet has insisted over this is 23 years of his message to bring equality between people. When he enters Medina, when he enters Mecca, liberates Mecca, he sends someone on top of Kaaba to raise the adhan. Who was that person? Bilal al-Habashi. Bilal was a dark-skinned from Habasha who migrated. The mushrikeen, they didn't have the gut to see Bilal going on top of Kaaba. One of the mushrikeen looked at his friend and he said, لَقَدْ أَرَاحَ اللَّهُ وَالِدِي مَاتَ وَلَمْ يُدْرِكْ هَذَا الْيَوْمِ. Said, God has, put a grace on my father who died before he would witness Bilal going on top of Kaaba and reciting the adhan. That was the mentality of people in Mecca. But you see Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, what he did. When he went to Medina, he struck a brotherhood between Muhajirin and Ansar. They would use their, share their belongings, their homes, their shelters, their food to support the Muhajirin. Striking brotherhood among them. There is no difference between a black or white, dark skin or fair skin, between Qurashi or non-Qurashi. They were all equal. But unfortunately, brothers and sisters, nowadays when you go to most Islamic countries, especially the wealthy ones, you see they have this chauvinistic state of nationalism, a state of apartheid. Only the services, the privileges only applies to the nationals, while others are considered to be outcast. They don't get anything. Why is it so? When you have such kind of stratification, this difference between classes of society, obviously this will cause discord. This will cause divisions. Nowadays, if you go to Bahrain, you see large community, the biggest community, they are living in a ghetto type neighborhood. They cannot move to other neighborhoods. Why? Because they belong to a certain sect. This will cause, divisions. This will cause disturbance. Once there is a slightest opportunity for people to express themselves, they run into the street. So number one factor is the prejudice and, prejudice culture. A culture that is based on protecting themselves against the other communities. The second factor, brothers and sisters, it is the culture of hate and antipathy. Unfortunately, when you look at most Islamic countries, you see that nowadays the culture of intolerance, the culture of violence have become the norm in society. This culture has two criteria. One is the realm of Muslims. And who are those Muslims? They are the only ones who are Muslims. Those who have the same mentality. They consider themselves that we are the Muslims. Anyone who is different, slightly different than us, is considered to be an infidel, to be a mushrik. So on one side, they have divided the entire world in those two pieces. The realm of Muslims, who they have to be living at peace, and definition of Muslims is only those who ascribe to their own teachings and their own understanding of Islam, and they're alike. Those are brothers and brethren. And the other realm, the largest one, is the realm of war and hostility, which are all considered to be infidels. Now, the relationship between those two groups should be based on enmity and hostility. There is no friendship. There is not even a truce. That's why this explains the relentless violence that takes place nowadays in Iraq, in Syria, or in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Why? Because they have made it religiously condoned. Now you would wonder, where does this hatred come from? How much violent why they have become so violent, so brutal and merciless? Could a human being be capable, after killing his victim, rip his chest apart and take his organs, his heart and liver, and chew it up? What kind of a brutality is this? How did this hate came from? The psychology of hate tells us. It tells us that hate is a strong emotion of enmity and hostility toward others. But it is a learned behavior, a learned emotion. It is not within a human being. The human being don't have an inherent capacity toward hatred. Every human being, when is born on fitrah, loves his likes, loves his fellow, loves the human being. But this hatred comes based on teaching, based on learning from others who fed hatred and animosity to this person. And who are those? Those who we trust the most, that we believe and respect the most. The religious establishment. When a religious leader comes and tells you this sect is non-Muslim, this sect you cannot deal with, this sect you cannot get married with, there is no intermarriages between them, this sect you cannot hang out with, you cannot even shake hand with, you cannot eat their food, he might as well say that you can kill them as well. You know, their blood is also permissible for you to spill it, to shed it. Every Friday sermons who are meant to be a unifying sermons, they become speeches of hatred, speeches of animosity, always instigating others, instigating their groups to attack others. You see, the person is ignorant. He doesn't know anything. But when he trusts his religious establishment, the religious leader, and believes that whatever he says is a direct relevation from Allah to his prophet, then he will carry out his duty. It is narrated that one day they grabbed one of those terrorists in Najaf. It was on the time of the birthday of the Prophet. You know, the birthday of the Prophet, there is a special ziyarah or salutation to Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. People will gather to Najaf in thousands, in hundreds of thousands. They grabbed one of them who was just about to explode himself. When they grabbed him, he started crying. Told him, why are you crying? You're afraid that we will kill you? He said, no, I was supposed to have dinner with Rasulullah, but you stopped me from having dinner with Rasulullah. Look at the brainwash. Look at the animosity. Of course, this is spread by what? Most of the time during the Friday sermons or through the satellite channels, disseminating hatred toward others. Of course, when we bash that group, also we have to bash our own group. We also have extremists. But do you know the difference between the two? Those groups, they talk the talk and they walk the walk. They talk hatred and they execute their hatreds. They kill innocent people. But unfortunately, our extremists who go on satellite channels and just talk the talk, they don't carry their mission. They sit down in the West or in California, close to the beaches, and they keep cursing the iconic figures of the other group. This guy is bad. This guy is infidel. This guy is, bastard. This is such and such and such. If you are truly a hero, go to Fallujah and say this. Set your TV channel in Herat and say this. Go to Waziristan and say this. While you are sitting here in California or in London, you're in your way into your TV channel, you grab cappuccino, and your way out you grab cafe latte while you curse the iconic figures. If you are truly a hero, if you truly believe in the way of Ahl al-Bayt, go to those places and do this. Why you're sitting here in the West, immune and safe and happy, and curse the rest, and make your brethren, thousands and tens of thousands of your brethren and sisters, hostage to those criminals who come. They cannot catch you, but they kill those innocent people in the street, in the market. If you are a truly hero, if you're willing to rip your scalp for Imam Hussein, if you're willing to rip your chest for Imam Hussein, go defend Zainab, the shrine of Zainab right now in Syria, which is surrounded by the enemies. You just talk the talk. Where is your walk? Where is your action? You consider yourself, you are the true follower of Ahl al-Bayt, and the rest have a weak faith in Ahl al-Bayt. Show it. Exemplify it. When Surah At-Tawbah was descended to the Prophet, and Surah At-Tawbah was full of scolding and denigration of mushrikeen, the Prophet gave it to Imam Ali, told him, Ya Ali, go to mushrikeen inside the heart of Mecca and recite it to them. Ali ibn Abi Talib took Surah At-Tawbah and went inside Mecca and then recited to the mushrikeen, to the beacons of Mecca. No one could touch him. If you truly believe in your cause, you curse those iconic figures, go to their heartland and do this. Why you're sitting here immune and safe and happy and enjoying the sunny weather of California or in London in England, and make your entire nation hostage to those criminals who they attack the daughters of your fellow brothers, their wives, their belongings, their lives. What kind of propagating of Ahl al-Bayt? Is this sort of Ahl al-Bayt that they want us to do? Is to denigrate others, use profanity, profane words against others? Which Imam Where did Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa one day he stood up and cursed Abu Jahl? Did he ever do this? On the battle of Uhud, when the majority of Muslims, the companions, ran away, only 7 stood with the Prophet. The Prophet personally was attacked by mushrikeen. They broke his jaw. He was bleeding. He fell on the ground. Those couple Muslims who were with him told him, Ya Rasulullah, raise your hand, curse the mushrikeen. Allah will accept your prayers. Just curse them. You can destroy them all. The Prophet raised his hand and said, Allahumma hdi qawmi fa innahum la ya'lamun. Guide those people because they are ignorant, because they don't know. Unfortunately, brothers and sisters, the majority, the overwhelming majority of Muslims, you can say that they are ignorant, they don't know the rights from the wrong. The only thing that they know is they just go to the Friday sermons. They just listen to the Imam who delivers the sermons and put their full trust in him. Whatever he says, they consider this is a every time I make a mistake when I say it. Revelation of God. A direct words of God. Unfortunately, this is the unfortunate state that we run through. So this is the second factor, brothers and sisters. The third factor, it is the internal, the domestic, and the external enemy. I will elaborate on this after your big and loud salawat. When you look at those people who disseminate hatred and propagate hatred, you see that they are a particular cult. When you check this cult, you see that this cult does not have any origin, cannot trace itself to the origin of Islam, nor has any reasonable scholar. I am talking particularly about the Wahhabis, the Salafis, the Salafi movement, the so-called Salafi movement, the Wahhabi movement. They have been inspired by 2 leaders. One was in the 7th century, who used to be called Ahmad ibn Taymiyyah. The second one, an illiterate leader, who used to be called Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. Where did they grow? They grow in a region called Najd. When you look at Islamic literature, I talked about this 2 or 3 years ago. I talked about the origin of Wahhabism. When you look at their sects or their scholars, you see that they came from the middle of nowhere. In the Islamic history, there are certain cities that were considered to be the capitals of Muslim nation, meaning the capital of literature, the scholarly fashion. For example, Ray, Nayshabur, Baghdad, Kufa, Cairo. Those were the capitals who have produced so many scholars throughout the Islamic history. But when you look at Najd, that particular place that is now is the hotbed of Salafis and Wahhabis, you don't see any origin. It's a barren land, and this barren nature have been reflected on the thoughts. Actually, there is a hadith. Let me recite this hadith. And this hadith is narrated in Bukhari and Muslim. The Prophet has said, when he talks about this particular region in Arabian Peninsula, Najd, it says, Ha huna ra'sul kufr. When he mentions Najd, ra'sul kufri min ha huna, min haythu yatla'u qarnu shaytan. The head of kufr, the head of infidelity is in this region. The horn of shaitan comes from this region. This is narrated. Now if you go to Sahih Muslim and Bukhari, you will see this hadith is narrated. This cult came from the middle of nowhere. If you check their basics, you cannot trace it to any Muslim group. You don't know if they are really a Shia, a Sunni, Hanbali, Hanafi, Maliki. You have no idea where they came from. Let me tell you this anecdote. Probably I have said this before, but it's very befitting to say it here. They say it used to be a monastery a place, an old church, a monastery that used to be next to the sea. The monk used to take care of this monastery. There used to be a pelican that goes on top of the bell of this monastery, eats and, defecate his dung on top of the bell. Now, the feces of the birds is very acidic. You have to be a biochemist to know this. So by time, the bill will erode, becomes rotten, and the sound of the bill becomes funny. So this monk used to, go on top of the roof and kick this pelican. Again, this pelican will come sit there and cause his trouble. One day the monk thought of a trick. He made a bait for this pelican. He grabbed a camel meat, he marinated in wine and put it on top of the bill. The pelican came and ate this piece of meat. When the pelican ate from this piece, this is not a true story, but the spirit is very beautiful. When he ate from this piece of meat, he felt intoxicated. He fell on the ground. When he fell on the ground, the monkey grabbed him and told him, "Do you know why I did this? Why I grabbed the camel meat and I marinated in wine and gave it to you? I just wanted to know to which religion you prescribe yourself. If you are a Jew, you're not supposed to eat camel meat. If you are a Christian, you're not supposed to defecate on the bell. If you are a Muslim, you're not supposed to drink alcohol. Can you tell me which kind of religion you have?" Unfortunately, those people who cause this disturbance, who disseminate the culture of hatred, when you trace them, you don't see any origin to them. No origin whatsoever. Now, grab this zealotry, which have been going on for so many years now, combine it with petrodollars. What do you end up having? You're having a weapon that is stronger and more potent. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. The microphone also got excited. When you put the combination of zealotry with petrodollar, the easy dollar that is made in the Persian Gulf, you will get to see this kind of unfortunate scene. Now, an offshoot of this Salafi is the Qa'ida. Al-Qa'ida, all of you know what is Al-Qa'ida, what has been doing for the past 15 years, 18 years. How many countries have been attacked by Al-Qa'ida? How many countries? In every continent you will find countries. There is no country was left immune from them except one country. Except one country. That they did not even shot a single bullet against. Wouldn't that speak volume? Those who attack the Shia, when you tell them, why do you attack the Shia? They say because of their relationship to the Jews. They go to Indonesia, they cause havoc, they kill people. You tell them, why do you do this? They say because of the relationship with Israel. They kill the innocent people because of the Israel. Well, if you hate Israel so much, why didn't you have shot a single bullet against Israel? What does that tell you? Doesn't this speak volume about this? Who support them? Who have made them to come to America and initiate the September 11 attacks? Do you think this is a mentality of an Arabian nomad like bin Laden? Sitting there and thinking how he utilizes and shores up the support and brings his people to take the airplanes and hit those centers? Wouldn't it be someone who have helped him with this? So those are the internal enemy. And the external enemy is obvious who they are, without mentioning. We know them all. But I will just give you an example. During the time of Saddam Hussein, who was a ruthless dictator, who have killed so many, of course, those cults who were with him, the majority were Sunnis. But no one of the victims, nor the Sunnis, would say that the regime is a Sunni regime. They would say it is Saddam. Saddam used to kill the Kurds, used to call the Shia, and sometimes used to call the Sunnis as well. The intermarriage was between them. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أنا قطعتها.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
It's working now. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. So during the time of Saddam, no one would accuse him that you are a Sunni and carrying your onslaught against the Kurds and Shia. They would consider him, he is nothing but a criminal. And people from all sects, they used to get married. Still, nowadays we have cousins. Some of the cousins are Sunni, some of the cousins are Shia. They used to be at that time. Now, after the occupation, imagine, after 2003, this term has become so famous. All of you have heard of it. It says the Sunni triangle. Haven't you heard of the Sunni triangle? When they say Sunni triangle, I will challenge everyone. Go to any history book written before 2003. Any history book that talks about Iraq, that talks about Middle East. Find if this vocabulary exists. The Sunni triangle. Did it exist? No. Who brought it? The Iraqis brought it. The Muslims brought it. Our fellow citizens in Washington, in the Pentagon and in the CIA, who delivered this word, the Sunni triangle. Right afterward, you would hear the Shia crescent. Check the internet. Check the literature. Do you see any place for a Shia crescent in the history? Who have made those? Who have made those? The external enemy. Those who are now sitting, laying back and watching and laughing. Up to 2006, you would not see so much disturbance in Muslim countries. But right after July 2006, when Israel received their resounding defeat at the hand of the resistance in Lebanon, they started to work on this line. They said, no way. They could not win anyway. They lose, souls. They lose blood. They lose money, wealth, reputation, and everything. They said, okay, let us make them fight each other. Nowadays, Israel is sitting there and laughing at us, enjoying their time. This is it, unfortunately. Now, what is the solution, brothers and sisters? What can we solve? Is there any solution? Honestly, I don't know if there is a real solution. But my thought have made me to say this. In my opinion, in my humble opinion, I think there could be 2 or 3 solutions. Number one, whenever we reach a unifying Islamic culture. A unifying Islamic culture means that an umbrella for all those subcultures. Those cultures, a Muslim, could be a Sunni, could be a Shia, could be a Ismaili, could be a Zaydi, could be Hanafi, Hanbali. All of those Islamic sects, despite the fact that they preserve their own identity and their own culture, they live under the big umbrella of the Islamic culture. The number one criteria for this culture must be inclusive, must be tolerant, accept others. Not only accept, recognize them and protect them. And give them strength, give them power. Without, for those subgroups or subcultures, lose their own identity, lose their own religious identity. Now you say, is this feasible? I can give you 2 examples. First, an Islamic example. At the advent of Islam, during the time of the Islamic empire, the Islamic Renaissance, you would see that the Islamic Empire was the most progressive state on face of this planet. People would run away from Europe, either Christians or Jews, and would join the Islamic Empire. The House of Wisdom that was established by Al-Ma'mun Al-Abbasi was a bunch of scholars. They would do their search and findings, and then they would bring it to the Khalifa as a consultation, and the Khalifa would act upon this. The head of those scholars was Musa ibn al-Nasir, a Jewish scholar who was working with a Muslim scholar who used to be working with a Christian scholar. That harmony, that religious harmony used to exist 1400 years ago. Look at the government of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Here, I will give you an incident. One day, the soldiers of Muawiyah attacked Al-Anbar. Anbar is a region in Iraq. When they attacked them, they went to two ladies, two women. One is Muslim, the other one is non-Muslim, mu'ahada. They grabbed their belonging, they plundered everything, and they ran away. Now the message went to Imam Ali. Imam Ali alayhi salam, as was he sitting there, he felt so sorry. He said, وَلَقَدْ بَلَغَنِي أَنَّ الرَّجُلَ مِنْهُمْ كَانَ يَدْخُلُ عَلَى الْمَرْأَةِ الْمُسْلِمَةِ وَالْأُخْرَى الْمُعَاهَدَةِ. That the soldier would attack both women, the Muslim woman and the non-Muslim woman, and they plunders everything and run away. Then he says, فَلَوْ إِنَّ امْرَأً مُسْلِمًا مَاتَ بَعْدَ هَذَا أَسَفًا مَا كَانَ عِنْدِي مَلُومًا بَلْ كَانَ بِهِ جَدِيرًا. If any Muslim dies from this out of sorrow, being so sorry that he dies from this, to me is very befitting. A non-Muslim lady get denigrated, get attacked. Imam Ali alayhi salam says, if any Muslim dies from this, I consider it befitting. What does this tell you? It tells you the extent of harmony, the harmonious state that used to exist between Muslims and non-Muslims. That was at the advent of history. If we want a real example, look at the United States, the country that we live in today. In this country, how many religious denominations are? Just consider the Protestants, for example. You have the Lutherans, you have the Adventists, you have the Presbyterians, you have the Baptists, you have the Calvinists, you have the whatever, you name them. There are 40, 50. Those are only the Protestants. Have you ever seen people fight between themselves? Religious domination, fight between themselves? Maybe this cuckoo, the name Terry Jones, who went and burned, so many volumes, and it turned to be they were all Bibles, not Quran. Out of being, so shallow, he ordered those books from Amazon to burn them on the September 11th, 3,000 copies. Now they have sent them volumes, but turned to be, Bibles, not Quran. And he burned them without even looking at them. So this is what I am saying. In this country, you see how people are peaceful. You go to college, you go to any class in any university, you see the Arabs sitting with the Persians, sitting with the Mexicans, sitting with the Asians, sitting with the Taiwanese. All are sitting there and listening to the lecture of the teacher, the instructor, the Christian, the Catholic, the Jew, the Muslim, the atheist, the agnostic, the homosexual, the transsexual, all are sitting and listening. Why don't we have the same thing? Why don't we have to show the tolerance that we do? Unfortunately, the tolerance that we seek is non-existent in almost all our Islamic countries. So this is number one. If this can be a real solution. Now you can ask me, how can we reach this state? Honestly, I don't know how. But I'm just telling you that we had such kind of example. The second one is the one that pertains to us, brothers and sisters, to the followers of Ahlul Bayt. What can we do as followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam? You see, brothers and sisters, we have a concept that unfortunately have been distorted. And that is the concept of taqiyya. Taqiyya, some people think of it, meaning that you conceal your own faith. This is not the taqiyya. The taqiyya means when you become courteous, when you become disciplined and nice with others. The critics tell you that taqiyya, when you conceal your own faith, basically you become a hypocrite. You have a double standards. You conceal your true faith and your true motives against others, while you expect others to believe you. This is considered to be taqiyya. This is not helping. In fact, this will destroy the mutual respect and mutual trust between the factions. So you're not supposed to make taqiyya. The problem with the critics that they have not understood what the meaning of taqiyya is. The real meaning of taqiyya. You see, brothers and sisters, we have two kinds of taqiyya. The guarding of. One, when it is out of fear. When you fear the autocrat, you fear the ruler who is a ruthless, brutal, and does not have any sense of rationality. To this person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mandates that you use taqiyya. Here in the Quran, the famous story of Ammar. Ammar was brought by mushrikeen and was asked to denigrate and, to say bad words, use a profanity word against the Prophet and against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Eventually he did. When he did, they set him free. He went to the Prophet and told him, Ya Rasulullah, I said this. I said the infidel word. I praised the idols. What would happen to me? This ayah came, says, "Man kafara billahi min ba'di imanihi illa man ukriha wa qalbuhu mutma'innun bil iman." When you are forced for this, you can use whatever, you can say whatever you want to protect yourself. Why? Because the ruler is rational. The ruler is ruthless. He does not have any sense of rationality. Therefore, you have to protect yourself. The Prophet told him, Ammar, whenever they come back to you and tell you to do this, do the same thing. As long as your heart is full of assuredness in belief of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is one type of taqiyya. The other type of taqiyya is when you demonstrate the good quality of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. When you are nice to people. For example, you are in a big masjid that belongs to them, to our brothers, and they all worship in the same way. The ulama tell you, you can follow them exactly in the same way. Why? Not being a hypocrite, rather being sensitive to their rituals. Say that I don't want to be, different than you. I don't want to look abnormal. Therefore, I accompany with you. I accompany you in your rituals. This is one kind. And the other one is when you show your niceness to them. When you show your true demeanor to them. Here is a message from Al-Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam. He said, "Sallu fi asha'irihim." When you attend their meetings, perform your prayers with them. Wa'udu mardahum. Visit their sick people. Washhadu janaizahum. When you see a janazah, a funeral procession, participate in the funeral procession. Washhadu lahum wa alayhim. Participate in their daily affairs. If they ask you for witness, bear witness. Go to the court. Participate with them. وَلَا يَسْبِقُونَكُمْ إِلَى شَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَيْرِ فَأَنْتُمْ أَوْلَى بِهِ. Don't make them. They outpace you in doing the good things. You are the ones who have to do the good things before them. Now the Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam says this. If you do this, فَإِنَّكُمْ إِن فَعَلْتُمْ ذَلِكَ قِيلَ هَؤُلَاءِ الْجَعْفَرِيَّةِ. They are the followers of Jafar al-Sadiq. رحم الله جعفرا ما كان أحسن ما يؤدب به أصحابه. May Allah bless Jafar ibn Muhammad. How good he raised his followers. How good he taught his followers. But if you are the opposite, if you denigrate them, if you belittle them, if you humiliate them, وَإِن كَانَ خَلَافَ ذَلِكَ قَالُوا انظُرُوا إِلَى هَؤُلَاءِ الْجَعْفَرِيِّ. Look at the followers of Jafar ibn Muhammad. فَعَلَ اللَّهِ بِجَعْفَرْ مَا فَعَلْ. May God do such and such to Ja'far, who could not raise his followers, could not teach his followers. This is a direct message of our Imams, that you need to show courtesy to them, respect them, even if their iconic figures are not good. You need to show respect. Respect to them, respect to their belief. When I say show respect to their belief, I don't mean, when I ask for unity, I don't mean that we should abandon our religion and they abandon their faith and we say, okay, there is no difference. No, there is absolutely big difference. Despite that we know the difference, we need to respect each other. I believe in the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. I have so many narrations from the Prophet who proves and indicate and stress on the following of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt. These are, to me, is a strong message, and I am the follower of Ahlul Bayt. But the other one, if he has a different opinion, I respect it. I respect his opinion. The same way that he should respect my opinion. This is considered to be a harmony. This is considered to be a coexistence. Brothers and sisters, every single Imam, when you look at them, how they dealt with the enemy, they dealt in the best way possible. In the best way possible. The man comes and curses the Imam smiles at him, and he grabs a big chunk of money and gives him. Tells him, Ya hada, if you need shelter, I provide shelter for you. If you need food, I give you food. If you need a drink, I give whatever you need. Why don't you come to my home? Come to my mansion, sit with us. This is how our Imams have showed them. When you look at the revolution of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, you see it has someone like Hur. Hur used to be a commander in the army of Ibn Ziyad. He used to have Zuhair ibn al-Qayn. Zuhair ibn al-Qayn was relative of Uthman. Uthmani, he was Uthmani. Yes, he joined, Al-Imam al-Hussein. He had people from Kufa, like Habib and Muslim ibn Awsaja. He had people coming all the way from Africa, like Joan Mawla Abidar. He had Christians, Wahab ibn Habbab al-Kalbi, who was a newlywed groom and joined the fight of Imam Hussein. Why? What did they see of Imam Hussein? They saw the true demeanor of Imam Hussein. In the battle of Ashura, when the Imam stood up and the companions went one by one fighting, one of them came, his name was Joan. Joan was a slave or servant of Abidar, a dark-skinned man. He joined the Imam. The Imam told him, Ya Joan, you have followed us all the time for the afiyah, so you be in a good position, you be at ease. Now you don't have to fight. Leave, you don't have to protect us. He said, Sayyidi, أنا في الرخاء ألحس قصاعكم وفي الشدة أخذلكم. During the time of happiness, I would eat from you. I would beg you for your support. Now the time, in such time, I would abandon me. La wallah, I would not leave you until this dark blood is mixed with the blood of yours. Yabna Rasulillah, inna hasabi lala'im, wa inna rihi lanatin, wa inna lawni la aswad, fatanaffas alayya bil jannah. My skin is dark, my smell is repugnant. I have nobody. I don't have any lineage. I want to participate with you in this fight. So my skin becomes fair. My smell becomes good. I get to consider myself a follower of Ahlul Bayt. He goes in the battle. As he falls down on the ground, the narrators say that Imam Hussein did exactly the same thing that he did with Ali al-Akbar. He went down and he put his cheek right on top of cheek of Joan and said, Allahumma tayyib riha, Allahumma hassin nasaba. This is how Imam Hussein alayhi salam used to treat Joan. The other one is Wahab, a Christian groom who was recently wed. He was passing by his, by the camp of Imam Hussein, along with his wife and his mother. Those. When they got married, he and his wife pledged that they live together and die together. On the day of Ashura, his mother came to him and told him, Ya Wahab, you are sitting in the tent while the son of Rasulullah is fighting. I would not be happy with you. You have to go in the battle and fight. He goes and fight for a while and comes back and tell her, Ummah, hal raditi anni? Are you satisfied? She said, La wallah, I would not be satisfied until I see you dead. I see your dead body on the ground. His wife would grab him, told him, Ya Wahab, did you forget about our pledge? How are you abandoning me? Where are you going? He would bring her back to the tent. Next time when he went in the battle, he was fighting. All of a sudden he heard the voice of his wife saying, Billahi alayka ya Wahab, qatil dun al-tayyibin. Fight, Wahab. Keep fighting. He looks back, he sees his wife, tells his wife what is going on. Just a moment ago you were preventing me. Now you are asking me to go and fight. She said, Ya Wahab la talumni. Inna wa'iyat al-Husayn qatta'at niyata qalbi. I saw the cries of Imam Hussein, the wailing of Imam Hussein standing next to the khayma. He said, what did you hear? She said that I heard him says, وَقِلَّةَ نَاصَرَةً أَلَا هَلْ مِن نَاصِرٍ يَنصُرُنَا. Wahab grabbed the hand of his wife, brought it to Imam Hussein, said, Ya Imam Hussein, keep my wife along with your woman, with your sister, with your children. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك وأناخت برحلك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته.